Hello, beautiful souls. Today's episode is so good. And before we jump in, I have some exciting news to share. If you've ever wondered where you're blocking money, this is for you. I've created a free quiz to diagnose your money wounds so you can heal them and unblock yourself to receive more money. Just go to moneywoundsquiz.com and answer 6 quick questions to get your insanely accurate and potent results. And if you're loving my vibe and want to work one-on-one to call in more feminine energy wealth, I would love to hear from you. You can shoot me a DM on social media or go to emilywilcox.com to learn more. Hello and welcome back to the M Makes Money show. I'm actually doing a solo show today, and it's on a topic that I'm really excited to bring to you. It's something that we all experience, but our experience is very relative. It's something that we often weaponize against ourselves, and that is time. And I'm challenging myself to do some more solo podcasts because I do have a lot to say, and I want it to feel like you and I have a relationship. And sometimes I think when I'm holding space for interviews, which I love, and I hope that you love, but that we're not necessarily building a relationship that we could. So I'm going to weave in some more solo podcasts. And I recently had a friend who is also a mom, and she was staying with me for a week, and our kids were doing a camp together. And so, there was some logistics to be coordinated and that kind of thing. And she asked me, she's like, you seem to have a really good relationship with time, and you don't stress about it. And yet you're also still like intentional about it and on time for things. And, can you just riff on that a little bit? And so I thought it was such a great question. And that's what made me want to share it here, because it took me a long time to get into a really beautiful relationship with time. I think we've all had experiences where we've felt a lot of scarcity around time. We felt like time wasn't on our side. We felt like we've weaponized time against ourselves, right? Like created a sense of urgency or not allowed ourselves to celebrate something, or felt like we were a failure because we didn't do something or accomplish something within a certain amount of time. And so there's a couple of things here, because first of all, we need to understand that to a large degree, time is kind of made up, right? Like we all abide by this idea that a month is either 30 or 31 days. So hello, right there, if that doesn't tell you that time is made up, right? We've got this calendar system, and we've all decided that a day occurs when, the sun goes up, and then the sun goes down, and then the moon comes up, and then the moon goes down. And that's one day. But if you can just stop for a second and imagine a world where we all decided that a day was the sun goes up, the sun goes down, the moon comes up, the moon goes down, the sun comes up, the sun goes down, the moon goes up, the moon goes down. That's one day, right? So if we all agreed to that, then all of a sudden our days would feel much longer. Our months would feel shorter if we were still operating on, 30 sunrises being a month. Maybe we would change that, or maybe a month would now be 15 days instead of 30 days. But point being, we could all collectively change our definition of time if we wanted to, right? And the reason that I like to do that thought exercise is it sort of helps me remember in times when I'm going to that place of weaponization that there's really no need for it. And so that's typically helpful when I don't get something done right within 30 days, right? It was a monthly goal and it didn't get done within 30 days. Okay, well, if it got done on 31 days, but this month was only a 30-day month, but last month was a 31-day month, but this month it took me 31 days. So did I fail because I didn't get done within the calendar month? Or can I give myself some grace? Was it close enough? Same thing with a quarter. Great. So it's like 90 to 92 days or something in a quarter. Okay, well, if I don't get it done if something didn't happen quite exactly right within those 90, 92 days, like, does that mean that I'm a failure? Or can I still continue the momentum, still keep working toward the thing and not get so fixated on time that all of a sudden it feels like the weapon, right? So time is very relative. And when we can just grip it a little more loosely, it helps us to play with it and ultimately to go into co-creation with it, which is what I'll also be talking about. So before I talk about time bending and being in a more co-creative relationship with universe around time, I also feel like I need to say that it is important, in my opinion, that we do honor and respect time. My other point around having some intention and having some self-discipline is that time often helps us to either strengthen self-trust and strengthen self-commitment, or it reveals to us where we're undermining that. So if I set an intention to go to the gym at 4:00 every day, and then every day I'm either late to the gym or don't go to the gym at all, I'm undermining my trust in myself. I'm undermining my belief in my word, right? And so that happens often around time and the types of commitments we make. So really honor and respect time. And don't take it lightly when you make a decision like that for yourself, or if it involves someone else, right? If you tell somebody like, I'm going to be there at 2:00, see you there, and then you're not there at 2:00, not only does that impact the other person, but it also impacts you and your relationship with yourself and whether you think you're trustworthy. And when you do that, even on a small scale, it affects how you feel about yourself on a big scale. So if you don't trust yourself to actually be there at 2:00, when you say you're going to be there at 2:00, when you go to create a goal for yourself to do $100,000 in your business this month, or $200,000 or $500,000, how much do you think that your brain trusts you to follow through on that? If you can't follow through at being there at 2:00 when you said you'd be there at 2:00. So you may have some energy to clean up around that if you desire a more magical relationship with time and a more trusting, loving, supportive relationship with yourself and your word. So these are all just invitations to look at and to get curious and to notice the places where perhaps the energy is untidy, right? And get that cleaned up. So once that the practical stuff is cleaned up, you're a person that, for the most part, barring extenuating circumstances, you show up when you say you're going to show up. You honor your commitments. You're on time for meetings. You use some basic masculine structure to help you, like calendar alerts and reminders, a planner. So you're not thinking about time a lot, and yet you're still able to be on time for things, right? So all of that is cleaned up. Then, knowing that I was going to be late, but not able to do anything about it, created so much stress and anxiety. And I really realized this had to change because I had a long career in pharmaceutical sales. And if you know anything about pharma sales, you basically have this geography that's your territory. And then, you're doing a lot of driving around to different doctors' offices. You're doing a lot of driving around to doctors' offices. And sometimes you have appointments, sometimes you don't. And I live in the Los Angeles area. So there's a traffic component that I don't always have control over, right? So I'm basing things off of Google Maps and trying to give myself enough time while also not creating so much buffer that I'm being inefficient, right? So sometimes there were like these decisions that I would have to make where it's like, okay, I have a lunch with Dr. Smith, and from where I'm at right now, according to Google Maps, that's going to take me 45 minutes. Okay, cool. Well, right now I have an hour 15. So I've got like 30 minutes to play with. And there's another doctor's office right around the corner from where I'm at currently. So I'm going to try to pop in, see that doctor first, and then head over. While I'm in this first doctor's office, there could be an accident. The traffic situation could change. I might end up waiting, 15 or 20 minutes to see that doctor. Like he might be like, oh, Emily, I'm so glad you're here. I really need to talk to you. Let me just finish with this patient really quick. And then he runs into a treatment room. Well, crap. Now I can't just ghost him because sorry, got to go to another appointment. So like things would happen a lot that weren't fully in my control. And I had a lot of long drives. And so I found myself often driving, looking at the clock, I kid you not, at least every minute. Sometimes it'd be an hour-long drive. So we're talking about me looking at the clock at least 120 times. It was not healthy. It really was not healthy. And so I decided that I wanted to change my relationship with time, and I wanted to change the stories that I was telling myself about what was happening. So a few things. Number one, like I gave myself grace, right? So instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. I'm going to look so unreliable. I'm going to look so untrustworthy. I'm going to look like a person who doesn't follow through on her commitments, blah, 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 blah. It was like, okay, I'm doing my best. I'm someone who most of the time is on time. I'm someone who has a track record of being very reliable. This is not the only data point that this person has with me, right? It's one of many. This doctor knows that I'm trustworthy. He knows that when he calls me, he'll get an answer. She knows that I show up when I say I'm going to show up. And these are also understanding humans, right? So I don't need to rush in with all of my ungrounded energy, feeling stressed out, apologizing about the traffic and making a big thing about it, because that's also not helpful for what I'm trying to accomplish, right? In having a professional conversation. So can I breathe? Can I calm myself down? And can I, change my nervous system response to this? So that was the first step. Then I took it a step further and I was like, you know what? What if this doctor is running behind today too? Because that happens a lot. What if something weird happened in their schedule too, where either a patient got behind, a patient needed longer, something changed in their schedule. Maybe they tried to fit in an extra patient on this doctor's schedule last minute. What if I arrive and that is the very moment that this doctor is finally ready to meet for lunch? Doesn't matter what time we were scheduled for. What if this is the actual time that it works out for this doctor? Ooh. Gosh, that feels so much better. And I'll tell you, when I started playing with time and playing with my story around it, changing my nervous system response to being late and playing in the what if around what was happening on the other person's schedule, I cannot even tell you how many times it came true. How many times my being late actually ended up being the timing that corresponded perfectly with this other person. So I love that now. And I use that, but I only use it as a backup. So sometimes where people go wrong is they're like, oh, I'll try that on for size. And then it becomes like their mainstay, right? And the thing with law of attraction and the thing with co-creating with the universe is that if it's not in our highest good, it doesn't work out. So if I was someone who was chronically late and then I was just trying to create a story that didn't ever inconvenience anyone else, that would not be in the highest good of the collective. So therefore, me trying to create that story wouldn't work. And I would start to miss appointments, miss opportunities. I would start to have people express their displeasure with me because I would need it called to my attention so that I could clean up the energy and do better, right? So where it works for us and where we can be playful with it and actually get results with it is when we are doing our best and we are setting intentions and we are honoring time. And then when things don't go quite right, we get playful with it. We play the what if game. We trust that it's all happening for the highest good. And you wouldn't believe how often that is the case. So then, especially once I became an entrepreneur and I had way more control over my schedule, I started playing with the concept of time bending. And time bending has to do with how we experience time, right? Because we've all had times when we look at the clock and it's like, holy smokes, how has 3 hours just flown by, right? It felt like 3 minutes and it was 3 hours. We've also had the reverse where it feels like 3 hours has flown by and it turns out it was actually 30 minutes. What? Why? So with time bending, we can set intentions and we can have fun with specifically saying, okay, universe, I really desire to time bend today. I'm looking at my schedule and I can see that it has the possibility of being a day where it feels like I'm doing one thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, and the day's over. But I really want to experience spaciousness in my schedule today. I want it to feel like I have an abundance of time. So let's do that together. And when I set that intention around time bending, I can't tell you how often I have had that experience where on my schedule, it makes no sense. It does not look like I'm going to feel abundant with time. It does not look like I'm going to feel spaciousness in my schedule. And yet, because I co-created that with the universe, because I set the intention around it, it's like every minute feels like 5 minutes. And it feels so spacious and I'm able to like get so much done. I feel like I have time in between calls or meetings to do what I want to do, to go to the bathroom, to get a snack. Like I'm not rushing at all. Time bending is so magical to me. And it's something that I write every week on my weekly planner. There's a part of it that's the universe's to-do list. And I always put time bending in there because then I see it all week too. And it helps remind me and it helps me to continue to have it in my consciousness so that I can help co-create that experience. And it has allowed me to be so much more in my feminine energy, to be creative, to feel like I can go slow, like I can savor each moment, like I can be really intentional and really present in each moment and experience it in a way that feels magical to me as well. So I've not had it where I've just gotten so used to time bending that it doesn't feel magical. Like it still feels really special. And it still feels like this incredible thing that I have so much gratitude for. And again, if we try to use it as this tool of like, oh, perfect, I'm going to set the intention to time bend today. So therefore, I'm going to add double the things to my to-do list that I would normally add because now I'm just going to get all of that done. It doesn't work like that. When we try to use it as like this masculine strategy and this force, and we try to just use it to make ourselves a workhorse, again, that's not in the highest good, and therefore it falls apart. So you've got to be in the right energy for it. But I really invite you to play with your relationship with time. I would love for you to screenshot your listening of this episode, tag me at mmakesmoney on Instagram, or just tag at Emily June Wilcox on Facebook, and let me know how this landed for you. Let me know how you're playing with it, how it's changed your relationship with time. I feel like that would be such a fun thing if I start getting tagged in a bunch of time bending things, like for me, for you, for us, right? As my mentor, Melanie Ann Layer, always says, it's like, for me, I'm getting more reminders of time bending. For you, you're now sharing it with me, which makes it more real in your life. And then for us, because we get to like collectively turn up the volume on it and start to play with time and start to bend time more regularly, which brings so much more magic and gratitude and appreciation and love and flow into our lives. So I can't wait to hear your feedback. Let me know how it goes, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Changing the way we think, feel, and talk about money will change the world. I truly believe that. It starts with you tuning in, and it spreads when you share this show on Instagram and Facebook and tag me at mmakesmoney. And you know what moves the needle the most? Taking just a minute to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This show isn't free to produce, so let's multiply those dollars invested to help this show reach a bigger audience each week. Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it. And lastly, if you want more connection, more M Makes Money style riffs, and a safe place on the internet to talk about money, jump into my free Facebook group, The Money Club. It's linked in the show notes. Until next time, I'm wishing you health, happiness, and boatloads of money.